Stop. Don't spend that 1 cent just yet. If you have one of these coins, you could be holding a tiny piece of history that collectors would love to find. Look closely at the date, lettering, mint mark, and every tiny detail, because one unusual error could make an ordinary penny surprisingly valuable. If you have this coin, you might just be one of the luckiest people in the world. Imagine finding a simple 1978 1 cent in your pocket and discovering that this tiny piece of copper could be connected to an extraordinary auction story worth as much as $80,000. If you have this coin, you might be one of the luckiest people in the world, because what looks like an ordinary penny could become extremely interesting to collectors when the right date, mint mark, condition, or unusual error is present. The 1978 1 cent was produced in huge numbers, so most examples are not worth anywhere near $80,000. But rare varieties, dramatic minting errors, and exceptional condition examples can completely change the story. That is exactly why collectors carefully inspect old cents before spending them, selling them, or throwing them into a jar. The first thing you need to understand is that a 1978 1 cent is part of an important period in American coinage. During this era, the United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of cents for everyday commerce, and millions of these coins were released into circulation. The coin carries the familiar Lincoln design that generations of Americans have recognized, with Abraham Lincoln appearing on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. At first glance, there may seem to be nothing special about it. But coin collecting is all about the details that ordinary people overlook. A tiny difference in the date, mint mark, lettering, strike, surface, or composition can sometimes make a coin much more desirable. And when a rare example reaches a serious auction, collectors can compete aggressively because they are not simply buying 1 cent. They are buying rarity, history, condition, and the opportunity to own something unusual. That is why the word auction is so important when discussing valuable coins. A coin's highest possible value is not determined simply by looking at its face value. It can be influenced by rarity, grade, demand, provenance, and whether collectors believe the coin deserves a place in their collection. So if you have a 1978 1 cent, don't immediately assume it is worthless. Take a close look. Start with the date. Make sure the final digit is clearly a 8 and check whether the numbers appear normal or unusual. Next, inspect the mint mark. Depending on where the coin was produced, the presence or absence of a mint mark can help identify its origin. Then look carefully at the entire surface. Search for unusual doubling, missing details, strange lettering, off-center striking, clipped edges, cracks, or other characteristics that appear different from a normal coin. Some errors are extremely dramatic and easy to recognize, while others can be microscopic and require professional equipment. This is where collectors become detectives. They compare their coin with known examples, examine photographs, use scales and magnification, and sometimes submit valuable-looking coins to professional grading services. Condition is another major factor. A 1978 1 cent that spent decades circulating may show scratches, discoloration, dents, and worn details. Another example may have been protected for most of its life and could preserve much sharper design features. For collectors, that difference can be enormous. A coin that looks ordinary in circulated condition can become much more interesting when an exceptional example survives with outstanding preservation. Imagine two identical 1978 cents sitting side by side. One is heavily worn and damaged. The other has sharp details, clean surfaces, strong original color, and an unusual minting characteristic. To a casual observer, both are just 1 cent coins. To a collector, they can tell completely different stories. This is why you should never judge a coin only by its face value. The next question is the one everyone wants to know. Could a 1978 1 cent really be connected to an $80,000 auction price? The answer requires an important distinction. A normal 1978 cent is not automatically an $80,000 coin. An extraordinary price would require an extraordinary reason, such as a very rare error, an exceptional variety, an unusually high grade, or another special characteristic verified by experts. Auction headlines can sometimes create huge excitement because the price achieved by one exceptional coin does not mean every coin from the same year has the same value. In the world of numismatics, one rare example can sell for an astonishing amount while thousands of ordinary examples remain inexpensive. That is why you should inspect your coin carefully before believing any price claim. If your 1978 1 cent has an unusual feature, document it with clear photographs and compare it with trusted references. Do not clean the coin before having it evaluated. Cleaning can damage the original surface and potentially reduce collector interest. Instead, keep the coin in its natural condition and handle it carefully by the edges. If you believe you have something truly unusual, consider having it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. A certified grade can make a major difference when a coin is eventually offered at auction because buyers have greater confidence when the coin's condition and authenticity have been professionally evaluated. And this brings us back to the exciting possibility of an auction. Picture the scene. A rare 1978 1 cent is displayed in front of serious collectors. The bidding begins. One collector raises the price. Another bidder responds. The number continues climbing because everyone understands that this particular coin is not an ordinary cent. If the coin possesses an extraordinary combination of rarity, condition, and demand, the final auction result can become the moment everyone remembers. This is why collectors always say to look twice before spending an old coin. You never know when a small detail could separate an ordinary piece from an exceptional collectible. So if you have a 1978 1 cent, don't rush to spend it. Look at the date, inspect the mint mark, study Lincoln's portrait, examine the lettering, check the reverse, and search for unusual errors or varieties. Use a magnifying glass if necessary, and compare your coin with reliable references. If something looks genuinely different, take it seriously. It may not mean you have an $80,000 treasure, but it could mean you have discovered something worth investigating. And if your coin turns out to be an exceptionally rare example, the auction market is where its true collector demand could potentially be revealed. Remember, the most exciting part of coin collecting is not simply finding a coin with a high price tag. It is discovering the story hidden inside something that millions of people ignored. A tiny 1 cent piece can survive for decades, pass through countless hands, and eventually end up in the collection of someone who understands exactly why it matters. So check your drawers, old jars, coin boxes, and collections. Check those 1978 cents before you spend them. Because if you happen to discover an unusual variety or a major minting error in exceptional condition, you may have a coin that deserves professional attention and possibly a place in a serious auction. And who knows? You might just be holding the kind of unusual 1978 1 cent that makes collectors stop and look twice. If you have this coin, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world. But remember, the $80,000 figure should be treated as an extraordinary auction-level possibility, not the guaranteed value of every 1978 cent. The real treasure is in identifying exactly what you have. So take another look at that old penny, inspect every detail, and never underestimate the smallest coin in your collection. If you found a 1978 1 cent with an unusual error or rare feature, tell us about it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable errors, and fascinating auction stories. If you have a 1982 1 cent sitting in your drawer, coin jar, or old collection, do not spend it before taking a very close look, because one tiny detail could make your coin far more interesting than its 1 cent face value. You could be holding a coin with an unusual date error or a striking error involving the words United States. And if the error is genuine, collectors may want to investigate it carefully. If you have this coin, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world. Because rare minting errors can sometimes create surprising results when they reach serious collectors and auction houses. The 1982 Lincoln cent is especially interesting because the United States Mint produced cents during a period when the composition of the coin was changing, creating several different collecting possibilities. Millions of 1982 cents were produced, but that does not mean every 1982 cent is identical. Collectors look at the mint mark, date, size, weight, lettering, strike quality, and unusual characteristics to determine whether a particular example deserves special attention. Now take your 1982 1 cent and start with the date. Look at the numbers 1, 9, 8, and 2 under magnification. Are the digits shaped normally? Is there doubling around one of the numbers? Does the 2 appear to have an unusual outline? Are there traces of another digit underneath or beside the visible date? Does the date appear distorted because of a genuine minting problem? These are the kinds of details that can turn an ordinary-looking coin into an interesting error coin. But be careful, because not every strange-looking date is a valuable error. Damage, scratches, machine doubling, corrosion, or post-mint alteration can create appearances that look exciting but have little collector value. That is why authentication is extremely important. Now turn the coin over and look closely at the words United States of America. This area deserves special attention if you believe your 1982 cent has a lettering error. Examine each letter carefully. Look for doubled letters, missing portions, unusual shapes, distorted lettering, letters that appear too close together, or other characteristics that are inconsistent with a normal strike. A genuine minting error can happen during the manufacturing process, and when the result is dramatic and verifiable, collectors can become very interested. Imagine finding a 1982 cent where the date shows a genuine, unusual feature, and the lettering on the reverse also displays an important minting characteristic. That would immediately become a coin worth researching instead of simply spending. And this is where the auction story becomes exciting. When an unusual coin is certified and offered through a major auction, collectors may compete against each other because they know that truly rare examples do not appear every day. The final auction price can sometimes surprise everyone in the room. However, you should never assume that every 1982 1 cent with a strange date is worth thousands of dollars, or that every coin with unusual United States lettering is automatically an expensive rarity. The exact variety, error type, condition, authenticity, and collector demand all matter. This distinction is extremely important if you are searching for valuable coins. A normal 1982 cent may be common, while a very specific certified error or variety can be much more desirable. So what should you do if you think you have discovered one? First, do not clean it. Cleaning can permanently damage the surface and reduce its collector appeal. Second, do not scratch the date or lettering to make the error easier to see. Third, weigh the coin using an accurate digital scale and compare the result with reliable specifications for the exact 1982 cent you have. Next, examine the coin under magnification and take clear photographs of both sides. Pay special attention to the date, mint mark, United States lettering, Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the overall strike. If you see something genuinely unusual, take the coin to a reputable numismatist or professional grading service for authentication. Professional examination is especially important when a coin is being considered for a major auction. A certified coin has a much stronger foundation for establishing authenticity, grade, and variety than an unverified coin being advertised online. Now let's talk about why 1982 is such an interesting year for Lincoln cents. During 1982, the mint produced cents with different compositions as the transition from bronze-based cents toward copper-plated zinc cents took place. That means collectors often pay attention to the weight and composition of 1982 cents in addition to their date and mint mark. This makes the year especially fascinating for people searching through old penny collections. You may have several 1982 cents that look almost identical, but their weight, composition, or variety can be different. That is exactly why experienced collectors do not simply look at the date and move on. They investigate the details. Now imagine that you find a 1982 cent with an unusual date, strange United States lettering, and characteristics that survive professional examination. Suddenly, that ordinary penny becomes a serious research candidate. It could potentially attract attention from collectors, and if it is genuinely rare, an auction could become the place where its market value is discovered. This is why you should always remember one simple rule: rarity must be proven. A dramatic story is not enough. A high asking price on an online listing is not the same thing as a confirmed auction result. A genuine auction result comes from an actual buyer paying an actual amount for an authenticated coin. So if someone tells you that every 1982 1 cent with a date error is worth a fortune, be careful. Instead, identify the exact error, verify it, and compare it with documented examples. If the coin is truly rare, the potential can be exciting. And if it eventually reaches a competitive auction, collectors may decide how much they are willing to pay. This is the moment coin hunters dream about. A coin that once sat unnoticed in a pocket or jar can suddenly become the center of attention among collectors. One bidder raises the price. Another bidder responds. The auction continues, and the final number can be dramatically higher than the coin's 1 cent face value. That is the magic of numismatics. The value is not printed on the coin. The value comes from what makes that particular example different. So before you spend your 1982 1 cent, inspect the date. Look for genuine doubling or unusual characteristics. Turn it over and carefully inspect United States of America. Check the letters for unusual doubling or striking characteristics. Check the mint mark. Check the weight. Check the condition. And most importantly, compare what you find with trusted numismatic references. If your coin has something truly unusual, preserve it exactly as you found it and have it professionally examined. You might not have an $80,000 coin, and no honest collector can guarantee a huge value simply from the year and a strange appearance. But if your 1982 cent contains a genuine and rare mint error, you may have discovered something worth much more than 1 cent. If you have this coin, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world, because the next valuable discovery might be sitting inside your own collection right now. So check those old coin jars, check your inherited collections, check your drawers, and especially check your 1982 Lincoln cents. Look at the date. Look at United States. Look at every tiny detail. Because sometimes the smallest error can create the biggest collector story, and when a genuinely rare coin reaches an auction, you never know how far competitive bidding could take it. If you find a 1982 1 cent with a possible date error or United States lettering error, tell us what you see in the comments. Subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, and always remember, never spend an interesting old coin until you have checked it carefully. If you have a 1965 1 cent in your pocket, coin jar, drawer, or old collection, stop for a moment and take a closer look, because the coin that looks like an ordinary penny could be hiding a detail that collectors would want to investigate. If you have this coin, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world, because old coins can sometimes become surprisingly valuable when they contain a rare error, unusual variety, exceptional condition, or another characteristic that separates them from millions of normal examples. The 1965 1 cent is especially interesting because it comes from an important period in American coinage, and collectors often examine these cents very carefully for anything unusual. At first glance, a 1965 Lincoln cent may look completely ordinary. You can see Abraham Lincoln on the front, with the words, "I in God we trust" above him, "Liberty" beside him, and the date 1965 below. On the reverse, you will find the Lincoln Memorial surrounded by United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum. But when it comes to valuable coins, the big secret is often hidden in the smallest details. So take your 1965 1 cent and examine it under good lighting. Start with the date. Look closely at every number. Does the 1 look normal? Does the 9 have an unusual shape? Is the 6 doubled? Does the 5 show signs of doubling or an unusual outline? Look around the edges of the numbers for extra lines or secondary impressions. A genuine doubled die can sometimes create a noticeable separation in letters or numbers, and collectors pay close attention to these characteristics. But remember, not every blurry or doubled-looking number is a valuable error. Mechanical damage, scratches, die deterioration, and machine doubling can create similar appearances. That is why authentication is important before believing a dramatic value claim. Now turn your 1965 1 cent over and inspect the reverse. Look carefully at the words United States of America. Examine 1 cent and E pluribus unum. Then study the Lincoln Memorial and the columns. Are any letters doubled? Is any part of the design missing? Does the coin appear to have been struck off-center? Is there an unusual rim or edge? Could there be a die crack running through part of the design? These are exactly the types of details that can make an ordinary coin much more interesting. And this is where the auction story begins. When a genuinely rare 1965 Lincoln cent is discovered and professionally authenticated, collectors may become interested because rare coins are not simply valued according to their face value. They are valued according to rarity, condition, demand, and the exact characteristic that makes them different. A normal 1965 cent can be common, but a truly unusual error or exceptionally preserved example can tell a completely different story. Imagine two 1965 cents sitting next to each other. One has scratches, heavy wear, and damaged surfaces from decades of circulation. The other has sharp details, excellent preservation, and a verified minting error. To someone who does not collect coins, they may look almost identical. To an experienced collector, they can be completely different pieces of history. That is why you should never throw an old penny into a spending pile without inspecting it first. Another important thing to check is the condition of your coin. Collectors use grading systems to describe how well a coin has survived. A heavily circulated 1965 cent may have worn lettering and reduced detail, while an exceptionally preserved example can show much sharper features. Condition can dramatically influence collector interest, especially when the coin is already rare. If you believe your 1965 1 cent has an unusual error, do not clean it. This is one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. They think cleaning will make the coin look newer, but cleaning can leave scratches and alter the original surface. Instead, keep the coin in its natural condition. Handle it by the edges, protect it from unnecessary damage, and take clear photographs. If the coin looks genuinely unusual, consider having it examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Certification can help establish authenticity and condition, especially if you eventually want to sell the coin through an auction. And remember, an auction price is not the same thing as an online seller's asking price. Age alone does not guarantee rarity. What matters is what makes the specific coin unusual and how much collectors want it. This is why professional verification can be so important. If your 1965 cent has a possible double date, unusual lettering, an off-center strike, a dramatic die crack, an unusual edge, or another legitimate minting characteristic, document it carefully before doing anything else. Take pictures of both sides, record the weight, and compare the coin with reliable references. If the evidence continues to look promising, professional evaluation is the next step. And if the coin is authenticated as something genuinely rare, then an auction could potentially provide an opportunity to see what serious collectors are willing to pay. Imagine that moment when the coin enters an auction. Collectors are watching. The description explains the unusual characteristic. Bidding begins. One person raises the price. Another bidder responds. The number continues climbing. Suddenly, that little 1965 1 cent that once looked like pocket change has become the center of attention. This is why coin collecting is so exciting. You are not simply searching for an old coin. You are searching for the unusual example that everyone else overlooked. So before you spend your 1965 1 cent, inspect it one more time. Check the date. Check Liberty. Check I in God We Trust. Turn it over and inspect United States of America, 1 cent, E Pluribus Unum, and the Lincoln Memorial. Look for doubling, unusual lettering, cracks, missing details, off-center strikes, and other genuine minting characteristics. Check the condition and avoid cleaning the coin. If something looks different, don't immediately assume you have a fortune, but don't ignore it either. Investigate it. Compare it. Authenticate it. And if it proves to be a rare variety or error, you may have something that collectors and auction houses would take seriously. If you have this 1965 1 cent, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world because the next exciting coin discovery might already be sitting inside your home. Remember, not every 1965 penny is valuable, and no specific high auction price should be considered guaranteed. The real value comes from the exact coin, its rarity, its condition, its authenticity, and the demand among collectors. So check your old pennies today, because sometimes a tiny detail hidden on a 1 cent coin can turn an ordinary discovery into an unforgettable auction story. If you have a 1965 1 cent with an unusual error or variety, tell us what you found in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable errors, and fascinating auction stories. If you have a 1960 1 cent sitting in an old coin jar, drawer, collection, or even somewhere in your pocket, do not spend it before you take a very close look, because this small Lincoln cent could contain a detail that makes it much more interesting to collectors. If you have this coin, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world, because the 1960 1 cent is one of those old coins that deserves a careful inspection before you decide that it is just another penny. The 1960 Lincoln cent was produced at the Denver Mint, and the small D mint mark is one of the first things you should look for beneath the date. At first glance, the coin appears completely ordinary, with Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But coin collectors know that the real story can sometimes be hidden in tiny details that most people never notice. Take your 1960 1 cent and examine the date carefully. Look at the numbers one by one. Check the 1, the 9, the 6, and the final 0. Is the final 0 normal, or does it appear to contain unusual doubling? Does the date show traces of another number underneath? Are there extra lines around the digits? Does the date appear noticeably different from another 1960 cent? These questions matter because collectors search for specific varieties and errors that can separate one coin from another. But you should also be careful. Not every unusual-looking date is a valuable error. Damage, scratches, machine doubling, corrosion, or where it can make the numbers appear strange. A genuine collectible variety needs to be identified and, for valuable examples, professionally authenticated. Now move your attention to the D mint mark. The D tells you that this coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Look closely around the mint mark and surrounding area. Search for unusual doubling, distortion, or other characteristics. Then inspect the entire obverse. Look carefully at Liberty and I in God We Trust. Examine Lincoln's portrait, his hair, the lettering, the rim, and the overall strike. A coin that has been struck unusually can sometimes show characteristics that are much more interesting than those of a normal example. Now turn the coin over and inspect the reverse. The words United States of America, 1 cent, and E pluribus unum should all be examined under magnification. Look at the Lincoln Memorial and its columns. Search for doubled letters, unusual shapes, die cracks, missing details, or an off-center strike. If something looks dramatically different from a normal 1960 cent, do not ignore it. This is where the excitement of coin hunting begins. A coin that looks ordinary to everyone else may contain a tiny feature that makes collectors stop and investigate. The 1960 cent is also interesting because the early 1960s were an important period for Lincoln cents, and collectors pay close attention to varieties from this era. One major area of interest is the date and the different forms that can appear on coins from the same year. The exact variety matters enormously. A normal 1960 cent and a recognized rare variety are not automatically worth the same amount simply because they share the same year and mint mark. This is why you should never judge the value of your coin from the date alone. You need to identify exactly what you have. Condition is another major factor. Imagine two 1960 1 cent coins. One has been circulating for decades, with scratches, worn lettering, damaged surfaces, and weak details. The other has survived with sharp design elements and unusually strong preservation. Even if both coins are genuine 1960 cents, collectors may treat them very differently. The better preserved example can attract greater attention, especially if it also contains a rare variety or mint error. And when a rare coin is certified and offered at auction, the competition can become very interesting. Serious collectors may compete for the opportunity to add an unusual piece to their collection. One bidder raises the price. Another bidder responds. The auction continues until only one collector remains. That final auction result can sometimes be dramatically higher than the coin's 1 cent face value. But there is an important lesson here. Do not believe every online claim that says a 1960 penny is automatically worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. A huge asking price is not proof of a huge value. What matters is an actual documented sale, the exact variety, the coin's grade, and the demand among collectors. If someone claims that your coin is worth a fortune, ask what specific error or variety makes it valuable. Then verify that claim through reliable numismatic references or professional examination. If you believe your 1960 1 cent has something unusual, never clean it. Cleaning can leave scratches and permanently alter the original surface. Instead, hold it by the edges and place it somewhere safe. Take clear photographs of the obverse and reverse. Use a magnifying glass to document the suspected error. If possible, weigh the coin using a precise digital scale and record the measurement. These simple steps can help you determine whether you have something worth investigating. If the coin continues to look unusual, take it to a reputable coin dealer, experienced numismatist, or professional grading service. Authentication is especially important if you believe the coin could eventually be sold at auction. A professionally certified coin gives potential buyers more confidence that the variety, condition, and authenticity have been properly evaluated. Now imagine discovering a 1960 cent with an unusual date variety that has been overlooked for decades. You photograph it, compare it with reference examples, and then have it professionally examined. The results confirm that the coin is genuinely unusual. Suddenly, this little penny becomes a serious collectible. If it is rare enough and desirable enough, it could eventually appear in a specialized coin auction. Collectors would have the opportunity to compete for it, and the final price would be determined by the market. This is what makes old coins so fascinating. You are not simply looking at metal. You are looking at a piece of American history that survived for more than half a century. Millions of people may have handled similar coins without ever noticing their details, while collectors today spend hours searching for the unusual examples hiding among ordinary cents. So if you have a 1960 D1 cent, take another look before you spend it. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Examine Liberty and I in God we trust. Turn the coin over and inspect United States of America, 1 cent, E pluribus unum, and the Lincoln Memorial. Look for genuine doubling, unusual date characteristics, die cracks, off-center strikes, missing details, and other legitimate minting errors. Compare your coin with known examples and pay attention to condition. If you discover something that looks genuinely unusual, do not clean the coin and do not alter it. Preserve it and have it professionally examined. You may not have a fortune, but you could have a coin that deserves serious attention. If you have this 1960 D1 cent, you could be one of the luckiest people in the world, because the next valuable discovery might be sitting quietly in your own collection right now. And remember, the most exciting part of coin collecting is the possibility that a coin everyone else ignored could turn out to be something special. A normal 1960 D cent may be common, but a rare, authenticated variety or major mint error can tell a completely different story. When that kind of coin reaches an auction, collectors, not the face value printed on the coin, decide how much it is worth. So check your old pennies today, inspect every tiny detail, and never spend an interesting 1960 D1 cent until you know exactly what you have. If you find one with a possible date error, double detail, unusual mint mark, or another major minting characteristic, tell us what you discovered in the comments, and subscribe for more rare coin discoveries, valuable errors, and fascinating auction stories.